Today's episode of Pool Magazine Podcast is sponsored by poolmarketing.com, the leading digital agency in the pool and spa industry. When it comes to marketing, having the wrong partner can sink your sales quick. Choosing the right one, on the other hand, can help elevate your business to unimagined heights and propel your sales into uncharted waters. Pool Marketing specializes in providing best-in-class digital marketing services for all spectrums of the pool industry, including pool builders, service pros, manufacturers, and suppliers, and has become the trusted marketing partner for hundreds of pool pros across the nation. Looking to take your marketing to the next level? Visit us today and schedule your free marketing consultation at poolmarketing.com.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Pool Magazine Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Joe Trusty, and today I'm chatting with Tim Auerhahn, the chairman of the Aquatic Council, a consulting firm for the pool and hot tub industry. It's a pleasure to have you with us today on the show, Tim.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Pleasure to be here.
Tim, like many others in the pool industry, you've been following the reflecting pool renovation at the Lincoln Memorial with close interest over the past few months. I know for those who are just getting up to speed, this pool is one of the most iconic landscapes and water features in the United States. For years, it's been suffering a list of maladies such as algae blooms, leaks, and a bevy of other issues. And fixing the pool has been on the to-do list for the White House for a long time, but the timing of the 250th anniversary, the semi-quincentennial, has stepped up the plans, and President Trump announced earlier this year that they'd be going ahead with renovation project to fix the pool in time for the big July 4th celebration that they have planned. A lot of controversy over the issue. Lots of people are weighing in on whether this is a solid plan or not. I know you've been pretty vocal about it and have appeared in numerous publications over the previous months. You sat down with the New York Times and told them in no uncertain terms that you weren't a big fan of the proposed solution at the time. And we're going to get to what you told them in due time. But first, can you tell me, for people outside of the aquatics industry, why is the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool such a technically challenging body of water to maintain, Tim?
Yeah, I'm glad you said semi-quincentennial before I did, because it's a mouthful. Yeah, I don't know if I would have kicked it out right there in the intro, but good on you for getting it out. Yeah, this is a really crazy body of water on a handful of fronts. Any pool company or contractor that's working on it, it's probably going to go down as your largest pool renovation project ever, right? It will probably be the oldest pool that most people have ever worked on. And the historical significance of it is it's obviously really important, probably top five in the world as far as notable aquatic features. So to just dig in on each of those, we're talking about a body of water that's 102 years old right now. It's incredibly old. You just don't see structures that survive that long. Monuments, obviously, they can be old, but this is a mechanical system and a monument all in one. So a really old body of water. It's huge, and people probably recognize that to some degree, but it's about 6 million gallons worth of water. So any pool contractor that's working on it, this is going to be one of the biggest, notable, largest volume bodies of water that they've ever worked on as well. And then if you pair that with the historical significance of it, it's a really challenging project on all three fronts. So historically notable, really old, gigantic body of water. This is a big task for any administration to take on.
Well, it's a enormous project, and that's why they've been trying to figure out how they're going to tackle it for so many years. The price tag has just gone up and up every time that they've tried to quote it repairing it. But get deeper in the weeds with me, Tim. What makes a reflecting pool of this size fundamentally different from a traditional swimming pool or a decorative fountain, other than it's just a big project?
Yeah, and there's lots of big projects around. So what makes this one notable? It doesn't gain its volume from traditional length, width, depth. That's what we see if you were going to work on an Olympic-sized swimming pool, if you're going to work on a competition pool at a university, big dive wells. These bodies of water gain their volume largely based on all three dimensions, length, width, and depth. This body of water, the reflecting pool at the National Mall, it's incredibly long. It's about a third of a mile, if you want to put it in terms that people can kind of process and understand. It connects these two monuments that are really far apart from each other and really ties this whole landscape together. That's the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington Monument. But when you think about something that's a third of a mile long, it's gaining all of its volume with that length. The width is notable. It's a wide body of water too, not nearly as wide as it is long. but that leaves very little depth. So just in general, with a couple of funny little nuanced areas to it, you're looking at a body of water that's about 1.5 to 3 feet deep at any given point. So it's a really shallow body of water too, which really lends itself to notable algae bloom. And for 100 years, this body of water, when you get to mid-July, late July, August, September, it does take on more of a pond-like appearance. It's got a greener color to it than a bluer color. It's still, water's very forgiving and it's got a great reflective quality no matter what time of year you're looking at it. But if you were trying to eradicate the algae and have it look really pristine like a swimming pool, structurally, mechanically, you're not set up for that type of success with this body of water.
Well, it certainly isn't the first time that this pool has been repaired. The last major rehabilitation before the current 2026 renovation was the massive reconstruction completed in 2012. And construction began on that in November 2010, and the pool reopened again in August 31st, 2012. So it was a long time to repair that pool, and the cost was roughly $34 million. So here we are again, and it's only 14 years later. This particular reflecting pool struggled so much with algae and leakage and clarity issues for decades. This has been an ongoing issue.
Yeah, so to go back to what you said there, I think people should find that notable. Obviously, right now in the news, the Trump administration is tackling this project. They're trying to fix it. They have a direction that they're going. And it almost seems political to pick on that project and say, hey, they're doing it wrong. But as you mentioned, this was attempted by another administration pretty recently, 2010 to 2012. You're absolutely right. The Obama administration dug in on this project. They looked at it a bit differently. They were really looking at the structural integrity of the basin. They added thousands of pilings to kind of hold this thing up in what is a really soft soil. So the structure and the surface were especially was not the focus, more the structure. But that project ultimately, you could say it failed. You could pick at it a little bit here because right away when they reopened it in 2012, just a couple weeks later, the algae is back. It was a really big historic bloom that year. They ended up moving to it's like a draining and cleaning and refilling phase where the project was just deemed to be kind of unsuccessful. In the eye of the beholder, what the ultimate goal is here. If you want it to be a really crystal clear body of water, structure, surface, and mechanical equipment all need to be considered in a restoration or a renovation. To try to patchwork this and attack one component at a time, you're probably going to end up with unsatisfactory results if your key focus is getting rid of the algae. We really have to attack this on a whole bunch of different fronts.
Understood. Tim, as I alluded to earlier, you had some critical insights to share with the New York Times about this pool renovation. You were quoted saying painting is not going to solve that problem. I mean, what
Mhm.
specifically were you referring to there?
Yeah, well, I think it's notable to address the original public statements that were made by President Trump when he said he was going to fix the reflecting pool. I think a lot of us probably saw it on social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. It was shared pretty widely that it was one of these speeches where he's kind of in front of a helicopter and he makes some really quick claims about what's going to be done with the project, and they're easily picked at or refutable. He says it's going to be, we're going to paint it. We're going to paint it American flag blue. It's going to cost about 1.5 million, and it's going to be a 50-year renovation. This thing's going to be great for the next half a century. So if you take that statement at face value, painting is not going to fix this problem. He's notably complained about the algae before. He tells a story on a regular basis about it's a foreign dignitary, and it kind of changes who he's talking to. But it's the prime minister or a German chancellor or somebody's talking to him and says, "This thing looks really green. This is what you guys do. This is how you represent America." And I do think there's probably some truth to that story that he's felt like he should try to fix the algae problem with this. But if we're going to fix the algae problem and we're going to use a sealant on this basin, it's ultimately not going to fix the problem. Would a darker basin color hide the algae to some degree? Dark blue surfaces in pools are very forgiving, so that we might get some immediate benefit from that. But I think when late September or even early September, Labor Day rolls around and Washington, D.C. has been like baking in 90-degree heat, I think we're probably going to see a pretty significant algae bloom again in this body of water unless a whole bunch of other things are addressed.
Well, that's some good insights. Honestly, could a surface coating such as this improve aesthetics without addressing the underlying filtration or circulation problems long term?
Yes, yeah, it's not going to get rid of the algae. I think, and we're all opinionated about what this is going to look like when it's done. It's very rare that we would paint a different color on a national monument. Could a dark blue surface change the aesthetic in a positive way? I think again, that's it's very much in the eye of the beholder. There's going to be people that look at this right away and say, "Wow, it's really sharp, it's bold." Water's very reflective almost in any circumstance. So having a dark basin, you're probably going to still get some really great shots out of this. Immediately, people are going to have some really great pictures of how this reflecting pool looks right away with that blue structure. And just anytime we drain and fill a pool and start from scratch, it's going to have a really great sharp look to it right away. Is that a temporary solution? I think it is. And if that was the ultimate goal, we want this to look great for the 250th. We want it to look great for the summer, maybe for the 4th of July. We're probably going to achieve some of that stuff. If this does get open for the 4th of July, it's going to look really sharp right away. Is it a 50-year fix? Absolutely not. Back to my quote there, painting is not going to solve that problem.
Getting back to the previous renovation, a new circulation and filtration system was installed during that renovation, and that one drew water from the tidal basin instead of using the city's potable water. Underlying issues, would a better filtration or circulation system kind of improve the issues that we've seen year after year with the algae blooms?
I think what we have done in a decade and a half in filtration, chemical delivery systems, advanced oxidation, filtration and circulation of this basin to upgrade the equipment package, we could probably move in a direction where this looks more like crystal clear water for a longer period of time and probably prevents some of that persistent seasonal algae bloom. So mechanical systems would absolutely be an appropriate fix and part of a complete renovation or restoration package here. And you could probably make some serious headway just by upgrading the equipment. The basin itself, the surface itself, and the structural support in those in that are holding this basin together, they're important. They're notable. We certainly don't want this 6 million gallon water basin to leak. But if we're really focused on the algae problem and the aesthetic, and I think most of us are, the equipment package is probably going to be really substantial in the ultimate fix here.
Well, which way do you go with that? Is it like UV? Is it ozone?
Yeah, if you look into the Times reporting, and it kind of gets buried in there, there does seem to be a company consulting on this from an ozone generation perspective. So advanced oxidation through UV or ozone, really great chemical balance that's supported by a wonderful circulation system, and ultimately everything's being fed through a great filtration system. It's a complete package there. And if this was being done the traditional way, I don't think any stone would be just left unturned. I think you'd probably get the best aquatic minds in the country to dig in on what the most advanced technology in that equipment package could look like, because we can probably do some really great stuff compared to what the Obama administration did 15 or 16 years ago.
That's a great point you make there, Tim. Getting the most advanced minds in the country involved. I'm going to get back to that, but let me ask you a question as it relates to the substrate itself. How hard is it to waterproof a vessel like this that was built back in the 1920s? I recently visited the Hearst Castle pools, and they've had similar problems with pools built in that era, specifically pertaining to repairing leaks. On a large scale monument sized project like this one, I'd imagine that it's so much more difficult to address leaks. But again, that's common in vessels of this age, isn't it?
Yeah, that's not atypical, and this it's always going to leak. I think we're at a point now in a 100-year-old basin where it's going to lose water one way or another. To that point, coating this with an industrial liner is going to slow the water loss. There's probably a mechanical system water loss as well. There's probably plumbing water loss as well. So yeah, to get to your original question, it's a very difficult process to completely waterproof a basin of this size, especially if you were going to use traditional materials. This is concrete and it's granite. And if you wanted to waterproof concrete and granite, it's going to be a real challenge. Using an industrial liner probably is a real great way to waterproof a giant basin, but it's fundamentally going to alter the aesthetics of it. And I probably can hear it in my voice. I don't love the idea of coating historic granite. I don't, that's just something that wouldn't have been a decision I would have supported.
Well, part of the charm over the years has been that the water is a little green. They plan to coat the basin American flag blue. What was your honest reaction as an aquatic professional?
I dug in on it quite a bit. It's The first reaction is it's just going to fundamentally change the nature of this. It changes the optics in a profound way. I think, again, some people are really going to see that and like it right away and say, wow, this is beautiful and bold and sharp. And some people are going to say, man, this was so important to me. It was so important to the history of the country. These just historic events that have happened here over the years have been painted over and now it looks different. Yeah, granite has a great color to it. It has great reflective property. It ties into the aesthetic and the landscape around the reflecting pool in a profound way. If you look at almost every other structure around there, the Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Monument, subsequently the World War II Memorial, the fountain that's right at the end of the reflecting pool, those are all done in granite. So yeah, to paint it a different color is a choice that again, it's really, you just don't see this in restoration projects. Most of the time, we're trying to go back to the original artist intent and design. This is a profoundly different thing than what we would typically see in a restoration project.
We're friends on Facebook, and I saw you post in one of the groups that the system that they're using is called Rhino Pipeliner 5000. I've never heard of it. And I think you may have been the very first one that I ever heard talking about this system being used in a pool application. Aside from any lack of the peer review process that we were discussing earlier on this proposed solution, what are your other misgivings about the coating that they're putting on?
Yeah, so you saw me. I'm active on Facebook and every aquatic forum, and I dug around. And once I had seen what they were using, I proposed it in a whole bunch of pool groups. I said, "Is anybody using this? Has anybody seen anybody use it? Are we familiar with this product at all?" And it just kind of got crickets. And it was enough that I went and started digging on the product further. You go back to the Rhino company's website. It is the same Rhino Linings company that does famously truck beds. It's probably best what they're known for. And they had largely stripped their website at this point of any advertisement of this specific product. It's a pipeliner, it's an industrial pipeliner for wastewater piping. But what is still available is notable. They cannot remove from the website the spec sheets, the engineering documents for it, specifically the material safety data sheets. So you can dig in a little bit deeper on what this product's intended usage was. And you're right, there's just no peer-reviewed support for this product being used in a handful of these environments. Notably, it has not been tested in intense UV light that you're going to expect from a big basin with a shallow body of water. It's not tested in chemically treated water, which is concerning because obviously there's going to be some chemical treatment associated with maintaining this basin. And then finally, and maybe on two fronts here, it's not approved for usage on granite, specifically historic granite, neither, which leads you to two questions. Number one, will it adhere to the surface appropriately? And there's been some question marks. There's been some reporting from the National Park Service saying it's bubbling, it's cracking, it's uneven in its appearance. You can kind of see that as you view pictures, or if you're near the reflecting pool, if you get a chance to look at it, it does look uneven in color. And then furthermore, if we decide to remove this product at some point in the future, maybe it's the Trump administration next year saying, hey, there's some pushback to this. We want to go back to the original structure. We want to go back to granite. Well, what have we done to that historical granite? This has never been a product that's been applied to it. So it's never a product that we know how to remove it very well either. So a couple of questions on a few fronts there that would probably lead most reasonable renovation specialists or restoration specialists in another direction.
Well, I did go into Ask the Masters. Do you know that group?
Yes.
All right. So I asked Paolo Benedetti. He's
Mhm.
usually the guy I reach out to about every highly technical pool question I have. And he's probably the most knowledgeable guy I know when it comes to building pools. He teaches advanced construction techniques for Watershape University. He said that he's heard of it and told me that polyurea is a very durable material for lining surge tanks, etc., but that it does fade over time from
Mhm.
UV exposure. So that federal blue will probably surely fade over time. I asked him whether or not the material would hold up, and he said yes. I asked him point blank, is this material a good product to use? He said, due to the sheer size and the foot traffic and wear that it gets, it's probably a good call. He said
Mhm.
plaster would be shot in a few years, and only other durable option would be a large format porcelain or stone, and at the time and the cost to do that would just be astronomical and take years. So this is probably the direction that they were forced to go in just due to the financial constraints of redoing the whole pool.
Mhm.
What are your feelings now that you've heard Paolo talk on it?
Yeah, and Paulo's absolutely right. If you're just focused on waterproofing this structure, this is a real reasonable solution, as would being like using a vinyl liner probably would have worked as well. We're one step away from that in like a pool renovation sense. And I don't know if it was a positive step or a negative step. Yeah, it's notable. I do think it's going to slow the water loss significantly. Was it the original problem that we were trying to solve here with this? I'm not convinced that this wasn't just an aesthetic choice or a design choice or a quick choice. So yeah, I do think Paul was right. It's a great option if you're just trying to waterproof the basin with no other considerations for the historical context of this basin being given.
Well, like you said before, this isn't a political dog pile,
Mhm.
but a lot of the focus on this project has focused on the accelerated timeline and the no bid contract process. From a renovation standpoint on a pool, that's a greater part of a national landmark such as this. Does the Trump speed kind of concern you a little bit?
Yeah, I see something that makes people uncomfortable a lot in public forums when we're working on these historical renovation projects. And we were able to do notably five historically significant fountains last year. We've had the real pleasure of working on like NSF Thermont, commonly known as Camp David. We did some work on Camp David's two aquatic facilities last year. And when you do a project like this, the statement that I make that I just people cringe and they reel back and they don't want to hear it is this is going to be slow and it's going to be expensive. And both are important because we want to get it right. It's if it's historically significant, it's a restoration project. It's trying to bring it back to its original design aesthetic. And that means you're going to have a lot of voices involved. It's not going to be one seal coating company saying, hey, yeah, we can do it. We're just going to blast this stuff on and make it look as good as we can. And we'll throw some water in it and see what it looks like. Typically, for a monument restoration, you have a lot of voices. You have community involvement, you have historians, you're going to have fine arts commissions in Washington, D.C. There's a fine arts commission that would review these projects before you move forward. And that's just leading up into the point where you start to get the best architects, engineers in Washington, D.C. You're going to talk about landscape architecture, how this ties in, the best commercial aquatic facility experts in the country. It's a very slow process to get this right. It's also a notably expensive project to get right, neither of which are popular. But if you want to get this done in the correct fashion, you have to accept both of those things.
I think the speed of which this project was announced and undertaken is what's drawn so many eyes to it. It seems like daily there's a new article coming out or a new story coming out as it relates to the progress of the reflecting pool renovations. A couple weeks back, the president and his motorcade drove out to inspect the progress on the pool. Experts say that might have not been such a hot idea. You mentioned concern about heavy vehicle traffic potentially worsening the leaks. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, I think most pool pros out there wouldn't drive a car, and especially an armored vehicle, into the basin of a drained pool. And this is no different. And especially given its age, the question marks around its structural integrity, the marks around the integrity of the basin itself. They were driving onto surfaces that had already been redone. I was working in Arlington this past weekend, and I got over just to see what was going on. And they're still driving vehicles on the surfaces that they've already repaired or adhered this coating to. I think most of us would agree that's a bad idea, especially the armored vehicles there. It's tough when the president asks if you were the project manager on this, and he said we had a call from Trump's team, and they say, hey, he wants to drive out and say congratulations, shake the hands of the workers. That's going to be a hard thing to say no to. But I think a real strong project manager would find another way to make that happen and say this is not a structural and surface that was made to be driven on. It's not concrete that was made for armored vehicles. It's not granite that was made for armored vehicles. Let's find another way to make this happen. That probably would have been a reasonable solution. If it absolutely had to happen and the motorcade did drive out onto it, I think you're going to bring structural engineers in and just make sure that we haven't damaged anything that we've already been working on or set ourselves back further before we continue on with the project. So again, it would probably slow things down and require further inspection.
The project was first publicly announced late April, I believe April 23rd or 24th it was announced. But basically, when the president announced the plan to drain and resurface the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool, basically the next day. The project was moving very quickly. They set an aggressive timeline for it. May 22nd was the official deadline that they had set. And now that's passed. You and I are having this conversation today. It's June 2nd. Is it realistic to compress a major aquatic rehabilitation project of this nature into a matter of weeks? Do you think they'll even make the deadline at this point?
That's to be determined on a couple of fronts. There's an active lawsuit from a fine arts commission in Washington, D.C. that's trying to get this stopped as fast as they can. And if that goes through and if they have some success with that, then I think this project is delayed really significantly and you probably don't see it completed this summer. If we're just coating the surface, they seem to be almost done. They're close. Again, I was there this weekend. The vast majority, I'm going to say probably 95% of the structure has already been coated. There's a large trough that runs down the middle of it that's probably quite a bit more challenging for them to actually apply this coating to. So they're doing that by hand at this point. But yeah, I do think at Trump speed, I'll use your phrase there, they are probably set to get this done for the 250th and the days of celebration that are coming around Washington, D.C. I hope that they're able to remove the fences and open everything up. There's a lot of construction projects going on around Washington right now, and you hope that when everybody comes in to see it, everything's put into back into working order, and the tourists and the people who really love the city can come and enjoy it for that event.
Well, Tim, I want to thank you for your open and honest responses. But before we close, I'd like to ask you one last candid question. If the president called you tomorrow and said, Tim, what did we get right here and what did we get wrong? What would you tell him?
Yeah, I think if this was a quick fix and if the messaging was, we want this to look great this summer for this event, and we'll tackle some of the ongoing issues down the line. They did that. They succeeded. Again, I'm not trying to make this political. I think that there's going to be some great people that are going to take some wonderful pictures with this when it does open. It's going to be a point of pride for a lot of people when it opens and it's sharp and it's repainted and it's filled. Water's just, we all love it for a reason. It's really forgiving. It's got that great reflective property to it. And I think as a quick fix, this was a success. You're going to be able to claim success. When it comes to historic renovation of a monument, we should make sure that we're hearing all the voices there because this is historically significant. We want it to last another 100 years. We want it to look the way, again, really a restoration project, we want it to look the way that it looked when it was open. And if we can make an attempt to make this shine the way that it shined when it was original and brand new, I think nobody's going to have a problem with that, despite the timeline and the cost. If we get it right, people are going to be pleased.
Well, good insights there, Tim. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to be on the show with us today and share your viewpoint. Thanks so much for being on the show here with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
Well, that's all the time that we have left for today. Make sure to like, share, follow, and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on another episode of Pool Magazine Podcast.
Today's episode of Pool Magazine Podcast is sponsored by poolmarketing.com, the leading digital agency in the pool and spa industry. When it comes to marketing, having the wrong partner can sink your sales quick. Choosing the right one, on the other hand, can help elevate your business to unimagined heights and propel your sales into uncharted waters. Pool Marketing specializes in providing best-in-class digital marketing services for all spectrums of the pool industry, including pool builders, service pros, manufacturers, and suppliers, and has become the trusted marketing partner for hundreds of pool pros across the nation. Looking to take your marketing to the next level? Visit us today and schedule your free marketing consultation at poolmarketing.com.